sir. Good
Yes,
afternoon.
sir. Good afternoon, man. Good afternoon. So let's kind of get straight into it. We were talking earlier, and you had mentioned, you had received some really beautiful reflections from people that had been listening to this podcast, and they'd mentioned how much they enjoyed the entire podcast, and also specifically mentioned how they enjoyed the episodes where we kind of broke down some of our favorite books. And as we kind of continue with this podcast, new ideas kind of come through for us that feel super aligned, and so we do them, right. And the book thing was one of them, and so we want to continue to do that, and so that's what we're going to do today. And the book that we're going to talk about is one of my favorite books. That I mean, it was around the same time that I read The Power of Now that I read this book, and it just hit, dude. It hit so hard because it was like unbelievably deep, just like The Power of Now, but at the same time, much easier to digest. Not that I would say it was better than The Power Now or worse or anything like that. Just the way he writes is just a little bit different. The examples that he gives, very real life examples that make it much easier to digest. And so the book is called The Untethered Soul by Michael A. Singer, right? It's a beautiful book. And so the way we're going to approach this episode is the same way we've approached all other book episodes. We are going to read some notes that we've written down. And then after we're reading those notes, we're just going to kind of go back and forth, Dan and I, and just kind of share our experience with what the book has been talking about and just kind of expand and go deeper on some of these concepts. And so I'll kind of start off, right? So, who is Michael Singer? So, Michael Singer is a spiritual teacher and author who, by most conventional measures, was on a completely ordinary path, right? A PhD economist student in Florida in the early 1970s until a series of unexpected inner experiences stopped him in his tracks and sent him deep into meditation and self inquiry. He ended up building a hermitage in the woods, founding a yoga and meditation center, and somehow also building $1 billion software company, all while living by the principles of total surrender and non resistance. His book, The Untethered Soul, is one of those rare spiritual books that manages to be very practical without losing its depth, kind of like what I was saying. It asks one simple but profound question: who is the one inside you that notices everything? And then it follows that question all the way down the rabbit hole. If you've ever felt trapped by your own thoughts, your own fears, your own story about yourself, this is a great book to read, right? And so, I remember reading this book at a really beautiful time in my life. And it, man, it guided me really beautifully. And so let's kind of just get straight into it. And so the first thing is the central question, right? The book opens up with one of the most disarming questions in all of self help. Who is the voice inside your head? And who is the one listening to it? If you can hear the voice, you cannot be the voice. This simple observation is the foundation of the entire book. The core shift Singer wants, the core shift Singer wants you to make is that you are not your thoughts, emotions, or experiences. You are the awareness that observes all those things. He calls this the seat of consciousness or the witness, learning to live from that place rather than from the chattering mind. So, I mean, I think I'm not going to speak for everyone, but I'll speak for a lot of people because I know this is a lot of people's experience. One of the first things that woke me up was noticing that I was the observer, right? Like having an experience where I was no longer my thoughts or I was no longer my emotions, but I was the observer of them. I can remember very specifically being in meditation and observing feelings rather than just being my feelings and being completely taken over by them. I can remember observing thoughts that would normally trigger me, right? That would normally bring up certain emotions and just observing them like clouds floating by. I remember this as like a very pivotal moment in my life, man, where it changed my life. I started to ask the same questions like, dude, what's going on? Who am I? Like, what is this? And I know I've spoken to so many other people, and that's been like one of their first experiences when they would say they kind of woke up was like noticing that they are the observer. They are not their mind. They are not their thoughts. They are not their emotions. What about you, dude?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with everything you just said. That's such a powerful concept and one that we've talked about before, but especially when you get into, a negative headspace or you start having thoughts that might upset you, or you start, projecting into the future a lot, or reminiscing on the past, which is, largely made up in our own minds. But yeah, just being able to disconnect from that and remind yourself that you're just the observer is a huge concept, and brought me and a lot of people a lot of peace. And I do have to just be fully transparent and say that I have not read this book, but just for anyone out there, but I'm definitely looking forward to it. I also thought it was interesting that my parents had read this and thought of you, and gifted it to you even though you'd already read it. But
Yeah.
um, also insane that this guy was able to build a $1 billion software company while living in the woods and focusing on yoga and meditation. That's pretty sweet.
Yeah. I mean, you know, I think as you kind of get on this path or just in life in general, right? The journey of life, I think a lot of people just want to stereotype shit, right? Like it's like, oh, if you're spiritual, then you should wear these certain clothes. And if you're spiritual, then you shouldn't like make money. And if you're spiritual, then all this bullshit, right? But ultimately it's like, bro, like what I have found is just that as I continue to find myself and as I continue to get clearer and clearer within myself, I just get clearer and clearer on all the things that light me up. And I just get to just direct a lot of energy towards those things. Right. And of course, I'm going to be more successful in those things because, I mean, I'm just so much more aligned, so much more authentic, so much more vulnerable, so much. I mean, it makes just makes so much more sense. And so, like, let's say that his passion was software, right, along with other things. Yeah, it makes so much sense that he would be able to create a very successful business, and so many other people along the way that have done the exact same thing, right? You don't need to focus on money to make money. You just, I mean,
Yeah, I think, and that's a very like people always talk about the grind, and it I feel like that could be a shift in a lot of people's thinking is you don't have to think of it as a grind, if you like you said, if you're just doing the things that you're passionate about and following things that light you up, um, then it doesn't have to feel that way.
yeah, 100%. It's like I don't like, I wouldn't say I make a lot of money, but I made more money this month than I've ever made in my entire life. And I'm not focused on money
Mhm.
at all. And if I told you what I'm doing, you wouldn't think that I would be making a lot of money, right? I'm a river rafting guide in Durango, Colorado right now. And so you'd be like, oh, you're a river rafting guy. I can't make that much money. But yeah, I mean, I've made the most money I've ever made and I'm doing something I really love and it's great. And this year has been so epic, man. The amount of things that I've created this year that I've never created before. And those things can also attract money. But again, money isn't the focus. And so that's super cool. But yeah, good point, man. Good point. On the point of like what he's talking about, right? Like you started talking about like the future and the past and all these things, and I think is like really relevant to talk about, right? When we're talking about you aren't your thoughts, you aren't your emotions, and so on and so forth. So ultimately, there might be people listening to this and being like, oh, what do you mean you're not your thoughts? Or like, what is the observer? I've never experienced that or anything like this, right? And so just to kind of break it down in the most simple way I can, right? So like, where do your thoughts come from? Just kind of answer that for yourself if you can. Like, where do your thoughts come from? Do you know where your thoughts come from? Do you choose your thoughts? Like, hey, I'm going to think this right now, right? And so if you really kind of reflect on that question, I mean, you can answer it two ways. Number one, I don't know where they come from because you kind of don't know where they come from, right? It's not like you're choosing your thoughts, they just kind of appear, right? And then the second kind of part is it, can you think of something you haven't experienced? And most people, when they hear that question, they're like, yeah, I can think about so many things I haven't experienced. And my question to you would be, can you really? because I'm not talking about something that you personally have done. I mean something that you've experienced, meaning that if you experience someone else telling you something, then you experience that, right? So now you have that data. And so the answer to that question that I would pose is no. You cannot think of something that you haven't experienced, because thoughts come from data in your mind. And when they come, you don't choose. They're just kind of come, right? But they come from data in your mind, and the data in your mind is from your experiences, right? And so you can't think of something that you haven't experienced, and you don't know where your thoughts come from. All right, cool, sweet. So thoughts are from your experiences, and you are not the one kind of choosing when they come in. And so another way to say that would be like thoughts are from your past, right? Because your experience is in the past. And you can project those thoughts into the future, meaning like you can say, like, oh, like in the future, this could happen or that could happen. Or what a lot of people do is they project fearful thoughts about the future and create what we call anxiety, right? Or they reminisce on the past and create what we call depression, right? And see, these are all physical states that we create with our thoughts, but ultimately they aren't us, right? Like our experiences aren't us. And if our thoughts are from our experiences, then our thoughts are not us, right? Our emotions are chemical reactions within our body, and so they are not us, right? We are the one having the thoughts. We are the one having the emotions. We are not them. And so that's kind of what he's talking about, right? And if we can make that distinction, right? And that's not saying thoughts are bad or emotions are bad. We're just kind of making the distinction so that we can navigate our life in a much more peaceful way and have the feeling of, let's just say, more choice, or another word would be control. But the word control is a really interesting one, because sometimes that word is like, oh, I control, you know what I mean? I'm in control and all this type of shit. And so we have a choice, is what I would say, right? And that's really powerful, to have a choice, right? Rather than being like, oh, I don't have a choice. This person said this and it made me really angry. And it's like, you have a choice, right?
Yeah.
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 So
It's saying how many people choose. Well, they don't choose, but they live their whole lives believing that they don't have a choice, or they live, most of the time. And I think the journey is just, because I know obviously when we're having this conversation, like, yeah, I know I have a choice. But certain thoughts come up, or certain emotions come up, and I don't even think about that. I don't even think about that I have a choice. I think that's the journey, is just, you know, having more awareness in each moment to make that choice. And I think
agreed.
it's a pretty easy choice when you remember that you have it. So
Yeah. And something we've spoken about is reprogramming. And so, like, making a new choice often enough to be able to reprogram that subconscious choice that you're talking about that you don't really make, it just chooses
mm.
for you. Right. Um, and so I was thinking about something, but it kind of just left me. Off goes the thought. I'm sure it'll come back to me at some point. But yeah, do you want to read the next one?
Yeah, next one. So one of his most memorable concepts is the inner roommate. He asks you to imagine that everything in your inner voice says is being said by a real person living with you. You'd think that person was completely unhinged, constantly criticizing, worrying, replaying the past, catastrophizing the future. That's a fun word.
Is a fun
Uh,
one.
yeah, we treat this voice as gospel. Um, yeah, man, that's really interesting to think about it from that perspective, because 100% you would think this person is insane, and just your worst enemy, just always like trying to make your life difficult, if you truly, if you kind of take that perspective on some of the thoughts that you get in your day to day, or most people get in their day to day.
Yeah, for sure, dude. Yeah, something that, Kat and I did, I think I mentioned this before, but it's very relevant right now, is, sometimes she'll have anxious thoughts, or thoughts that make her feel anxious. And so, like, what we did was we kind of like made a game out of it. And it's like, all right, cool, man. Like, when you have those thoughts, say them out loud. Like, tell me what those thoughts are. And my job was to not like judge her, right? And like not try to fix her, but just allow her to say those thoughts out loud so she can hear them out loud. And kind of like what he's talking about, right? Like once you say it out loud, now it's outside of your head and it's like in the room kind of thing. And it's kind of like the same thing in a way, right? And sometimes I would mirror her, right? So like she would say it and I would say it back to her. I was like, what do you think? You know what I mean? Like, what do you think? Like, if I said that to you, like if I felt that right now and I told that to you, what would you think? Right. And so kind of doing exactly what he's talking about. And it's really cool, bro, because like when you keep it inside, it's like it's weird, but like you keep it inside and it kind of like legitimizes it, like, oh yeah, this is really important. This is like a really like it's an important thought and like makes a lot of sense. But when you get it out there, dude, and you start like saying it out loud and have people reflect it back to you, most of the time it's fucking insane. It's crazy, dude. Not it's not that they're not relevant, but try to get them out, or again, give yourself that perspective. Something that I do a lot with people, and you know this, Dan, because I've done this a lot with you when we talk, and you've seen me do it with other people, is like I'll flip it real quick, right? So like someone will say something to me like that they're like, all right, I'll give you an example. So I had a lady that I was talking to that was really like like self-conscious about the way like she looked, and she had like acne and different things, right? And I flipped it on her. I was like, all right, let me ask you a question. Let's say your daughter came up to you and said, Mom, I am ugly. Look at this acne on my face. I'm so ugly. I do not want to go out. I don't want anyone to see me. I'm disgusting. What would you say to your daughter? Would you agree with her? Because right now, that's what you're doing. You're saying that you're ugly and you don't want to go out based on your acne and the way you look. But would you say the same thing to your daughter? Or would you let her know the truth, which is what? And she was like, well, she's beautiful and she should go out and she's amazing. It's like, all right, cool. What about you? Right. And so it's like, it's so interesting how we do these things to ourselves and they're so like legitimized to ourselves. But as soon as we flip the script on to someone else that we really love and we see in their full light, it blows it out of the fucking water, dude. You know what I mean? Blows it out of the water, man. Like something that happened during the Sacred Vibrations event a few times, a conversation I had with people is like, it's like one of the most difficult things is to see ourselves in the same light that we see others. Right. And I think this is really relevant based on what we're talking
Yeah,
about, you know.
absolutely. I love, yeah, the saying things out loud. It helps so much.
So
Sometimes
much.
I'm stewing on some random thought and beating myself up about it, and then you just say it out loud, and just yeah, it's like you can laugh about it, but it just feels yeah so much better.
Yeah, it really does. All right. What's next? All right, next point. Singer also introduces the idea that you have energy centers inside of you. He references the heart chakra and says that when you are open, energy flows freely and you feel alive, loving, and connected. When you close down in response to fear or pain, you block that energy. Most people spend their lives managing their closedness, rather than just choosing to stay open. This is one of the most practical frameworks in the book. Every moment of every day, you have a choice. Oh, yeah, there you go. To open or to close. Something bothers you, something upsets you, life doesn't go your way. Your habitual response is to contract and protect. Singer argues you can train yourself to use every single one of those moments as an opportunity to stay open instead. Simple, but profound. I mean, it's like he's talking about my life, right? Like I could 100% resonate with that. I get it. It's exactly what we're talking about, right? Like our ability to bring awareness to the moment and choose what we feel is most aligned for us in that moment. And it's super difficult. I get it. That's why I introduced many things into my life. Something that we made a podcast episode on, which was uh, the emotional guidance system, right? Really important because sometimes it's really hard to become aware of your thoughts, but it's much easier to become aware of your emotions because you can physically feel them, right? So bring awareness to your emotions, give yourself the space to come back to a level place, and then choose something different. right? And just start to use your awareness to choose the path that you truly desire to choose, and give yourself grace throughout the whole process, right? I think that's huge. What comes up for you?
When you were reading, I think I can't remember how many episodes ago it was, but you were talking about, listening to your heart over your mind. And that just felt pretty relevant as I was listening. Yeah, just to kind of, yeah, to lead with that. Exactly. Just lead with your heart. And when anything difficult comes up, when you're uncomfortable or angry, or, when you're able to bring some awareness to that, and then check in with your heart, and then see what happens.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, a lot of people, like when they hear the word chakra and stuff, they kind of get into this like realm of like, oh, woo woo, that's bullshit. I would say like you just haven't experienced it. If you think it's bullshit, you just haven't experienced it. So I understand and I get it. No judgment. Because at one point in my life, I thought it was bullshit and woo woo. But then I experienced it. And the only way I experienced it was to be open to it and started giving attention to it. Started giving attention to my heart, started giving attention to my second energy center, started giving attention to all my energy centers, to be honest with you. Dr. Joe Dispenza has some insane guided meditations. Took you through one of them, man, for one of our ceremonies, right? Um, and so I have experienced what it is to give energy and attention to our energy centers and how that can have an effect on our lives. Singer talks about the heart chakra. Man, I mean, that's the main thing we talk about on this podcast. But there are others, and they're also just as important and just as relevant, right? But I would say that on a daily basis, I give my heart the most attention out of all the other energy centers. Saying that, I do give the others some attention here and there when I feel relevant. But I would invite you all to do the same, right? To start giving attention and awareness to your energy centers. And what does that mean? Well, you know how you give like attention and energy to like things that you don't like, and things that you complain about, and also give attention and energy to things that you like really love, right? You're like, oh, this is so cool. Same thing. Just give that attention and energy to the place where your heart sits, and give that attention and energy to the place where your like second energy center is, which is just like below your belly button, kind of like right in that pit of your stomach when you're like, oh my God, I can feel it in my stomach. That's what I'm talking about. And if you want some guidance, cool, man, get some guided meditations where you can start to focus on those. But I'm gonna guarantee you, man, you start giving attention to those things, they're gonna wake up and you're gonna feel them, and they're gonna start guiding you in really beautiful ways. And so I'm really glad. Like it was really cool when I was reading this book and you brought that up, because that was still at a time where I had no idea about those things. And I didn't know what it was to live from my heart center. And so it's cool to come back here and see that, he was talking about that stuff. It's really cool.
Yeah, it sounds so obvious and so so simple when you say, give attention to the things you love. But I think, many of us, myself included, you just fall into that trap of focusing on all the things that that upset you. But it sounds so obvious, and when you say it out loud, just like what we were talking about earlier too.
Yeah, and like I'm glad you brought that up. Look, like, if you're listening to this, I don't mean to sound like, hey, just do it, dude. Like, what are you doing, you idiot? That's not the idea. And I'm not saying you were saying that, Dan, but that's kind of what came to my mind when you said that. Because I'm sure there's some people that kind of feel that way, like, because I remember I felt that way at one point, right? It was just like, what do I do? How do I do this? Like, why can't I do this? And all that type of stuff, right? Um, Man, just have some grace with yourself, and continue to step. Just continue to step forward, right? And do the best you possibly can. Um, I think the human condition is I want to be there right now. Let me just skip all of the steps and just get to the finish line. But find comfort in the fact that there is no finish line. There is death, but I don't even think that's a finish line. And so, let go, relax, and just have fun with it, and see what you can do. Right. What's next?
Next one. One of the best passages in the book is the thorn metaphor. He says, imagine you have a thorn stuck in your arm. Instead of pulling it out, you build a whole system of life management around it's a whole system of life management around not bumping it. You rearrange your furniture, avoid certain people, control your environment. This is exactly what people do with emotional wounds. The solution isn't better thorn management. Pull it out. Singer explains that unprocessed emotional pain doesn't disappear. It just gets stored in the body and energy system. He uses the Sanskrit word samskara for these energy blockages. Every time something triggers you, it's because it has bumped into an old stored wound. The path to freedom is letting those energies release rather than suppressing them further. That doesn't happen through avoidance. His prescription is simple. When pain or discomfort arises, don't resist it and don't feed it. Just relax, stay open, and let it pass through you. He says the only reason pain persists is because you grab onto it. Pain that is allowed to move through you will fully release on its own. Yeah, that's a lot.
Well, I'll tell you what comes up for me, dude. I'll give you an example of exactly what he's talking about in my life. So, um, a wound that I have carried for a really long time, and I still feel it in certain moments in my life, is the wound of not being heard or not feeling like I have been heard, right? And it shows up in my relationship at times. Um, and it disguises itself as like, oh, the other person doesn't care about me, right? The other person doesn't care what I have to say. The other person doesn't understand me and they don't want to understand me. And all of this bullshit, right? That's how it disguises itself. And they're the stories that are replaying my mind. But the wound is 100% from my childhood, from growing up and feeling like I wasn't listened to, feeling like I wasn't heard from certain people in my life, right? From my parents at certain times, from my grandparents at certain times, from people that I really loved, right? And it's not that they were doing anything wrong. I was just a kid, dude, you know? And I had certain thoughts and certain beliefs and certain things that I thought were important, and I wanted to be treated in a certain way. And sometimes I got treated a different way, and they didn't want to listen to me and they didn't care what I have to say. Doesn't mean they don't love me, but as a kid, that's how I took it. I took it like, man, like, why don't you care what I have to say? Why don't you listen to me? What about me? Right? Why do I always have to listen to you? Right? So that was a wound that is still with me. There's still a part of me that holds on to that, man. And my wife is one of my greatest teachers when it comes to that, because I love her so much and I care about her so much. She brings it out of me. And again, not blaming her. That's not her fault that she brings it out of me. I'm really glad that she brings that out of me. She allows me to like witness it. She allows me to see it. She's my mirror for it. Without her, I don't know if I would see it anywhere near as much. Right. And so what happens, right? Like what happens when I see that? What happens when I'm aware of that? Well, like what used to happen was like I would just go deep into it, dude, and just get angry, frustrated, and take that out on the people around me that were triggering me, right? Um, and again, I want to touch on that. When I say people are triggering me, I'm not saying that they are the ones that are responsible for the way I'm feeling. What I am saying is they have said something or done something that is the stimulus that has touched that part inside of me that now feels that way. So it's not their fault. It's me. It's all me. I take full responsibility now that that's done. So when that happens, now what I'm able to do a lot more often, if not most of the time, all the time, bring awareness to it, right? And realize what's going on and give myself the space to watch it float by. Kind of like Singer's talking about, right? Like as soon as I realize I have become the wound, I have become the emotion that is attached to that wound. As soon as I become aware of that, now I have a choice. I didn't have a choice before, right? Because I wasn't aware of it. But as soon as I become aware of it, I have a choice. This is such a powerful moment. What you choose to do with that awareness. What I choose to do with that awareness now is give myself the space to come back to peace, come back to alignment, and express from there. Because if I just continue to express from the wound, I'm just going to go deeper into it, man. And again, there's nothing wrong with that. it's not as though like I look at that as the enemy. It's not the enemy at all. If anything, I look at it like the most beautiful child who really wants to feel safe and loved and heard, but isn't getting that right now. Right. And so I show it love, I show it compassion, I show it grace when I have the choice and the awareness to do so. Yeah.
Yeah, it's, what came up for me when you were talking is when people do things that really frustrate you and annoy you. Oftentimes, like you said, Tyler, you're talking about the mirror. Um, a lot of times, what gets under your skin the most, what pisses you off the most, is the things that you kind of see in yourself. Obviously, not every time, but that's what I found to be true for me a lot.
Yeah, for sure. Um, do you have any examples in your life that deal with the thorn metaphor, right?
Something, yeah, something we've talked about in preparation for ceremony and whatnot is, I moved around a lot when I was a kid. I didn't move around a lot. I changed school systems, so I had to kind of make new friends multiple times as I was going through, elementary, middle, and high school. Um, and I wasn't always the most outgoing person. Still, not necessarily always the most outgoing person, um, and so I think that is something that a wound that maybe not having friends or feeling left out of friend group of groups or sort of kind of what we've talked about, potentially contributed to a little bit of social anxiety for me. That's kind of what comes up for me.
How does that present itself when you say social anxiety? Like, how does that present itself in your life?
Just feeling like not wanting to go to certain events where I don't necessarily know everyone, where I don't feel in control or I haven't built a relationship with people, um but I'm definitely working on it. And something I shared with you is, this past Friday I was invited to a watch party for the men's USA men's national team in their first game for the World Cup. And it was going to be me and Roxy and my sister and Alex, and we were all going to go together. And I was pretty pumped about that. But you know, Alex had some family issues down in Denver, so they chose to go down there and spend time with his family. And Roxy had a rough day and was not going to be ready to go in time. And so I chose to go by myself, just to put myself, to challenge myself, put myself out of my comfort zone. And it was a beautiful experience. I mean, I met so many cool people, connected with so many cool people. Roxy eventually did show up. But by that time I already, really, really gotten to a place there where I felt really comfortable. I, exchanged numbers with 5 or 6 new people, just met a whole new community of people here in Fort Collins, since I'm, relatively new here, which, yeah, it was awesome.
It's really cool, dude. I appreciate you sharing that. And so it's like, for the people listening, notice that like there was a choice point, right? For him to choose, like, all right, do I go by myself or do I not go by myself? And I'm sure there were many moments in your past where you would just resort back to old habits and just be like, oh, I'm not going to go. No one's going to go with me. I don't feel comfortable. But in this moment, you were like, I know what that story is. Let me choose a new story, right? Let me see what happens. So that's super cool, dude. That's super cool. And just to like express a little bit more, like, it can be scary to choose that, right? It can not feel good to choose that sometimes, right? But in order to create a new reality, you have to step into that at times, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. And again, I was just projecting into the future. Like when I showed up, everyone was incredibly welcoming, and I never felt, maybe once or twice I felt a little bit of that anxiety or awkward or like, okay, now who do I go talk to or introduce myself to? But just overall, I mean, the experience was so beautiful, and, just kind of trying to continue to put myself in those situations just to prove, that the ideas that I have or thoughts that I might think or a situation is going to be like are not true at all. I have no
Yeah.
idea.
Yeah. It's like a couple of cool questions is like, who are you without your past experiences, meaning that like if your past experiences are telling you that, hey, like you shouldn't be doing that because it's not safe or it's not comfortable or you don't belong there, who are you if you just kind of let go of that and step forward, right? Who are you without your worries? Who are you without your anxiety, right? I mean, you're a much freer person, dude, that steps into new places and meets new friends and has great conversations and has a really big smile on your face. I remember you called me that day, dude, like at the end of it, and like, dude, I got to share something with you. This was sick. You got pumped,
Yeah.
right? And so it's like, we have a choice. And, I would encourage people to bring more awareness to those choice points and just a bit more courage, man, to choose something new, right? And see what happens. So next. Um, One of the most powerful chapters in the book is about using the awareness of death as the ultimate teacher. Singer argues that if you truly internalize the fact that you're going to die and that any moment you could be your last, and that any moment could be your last, you would stop wasting energy on trivial complaints, grudges, and fears almost instantly. He uses this not to create anxiety, but to create freedom. I mean, preach, bro. That's again probably the biggest contributor to why I'm living the life I'm living right now.
Mm.
And again, spoken about this, but I had a very deep, visceral, real experience of death, and it completely changed my life because I was able to embody that fact. Like, yeah, bro, I could die at any moment. The only thing that makes me think I couldn't die at any moment is my thoughts, which I am not, and my assumptions, which I am not. And so, if that's not true, then what am I going to do with my life, man? And that's why I am where I am, and that's why I'm the person I am today, is because I do my best to continue to feel into that. I do my best to continue to reprogram myself with that understanding. I have said that at least 3 times this week on the water to clients purposefully, dude. Like they're like, oh, like how did you get into living the life you're living? And I'm like, well, I came to a place where I realized that I could die at any moment. And so knowing that I could die at any moment, what am I going to do? I'm going to do what I love. I'm going to do what intrigues me. I'm going to do what like makes me happy and so on and so forth. Right. And I share that with you because not only did I have that experience, but it takes continuous awareness and continuous focus and continuous like saying it out loud and feeling into it to continue to be able to live from there. Right. And so that's another way to reprogram. Say it out loud, say it again, say it again. Right. Um, so yeah, what comes up for you with the whole death thing?
Yeah, I mean, we did the episode on it, and
Good.
yeah, check it out if you haven't seen it.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, it gives you so much freedom. Like, it's how we said not to create anxiety, but to create freedom. But yeah, the more I felt into it, the more free I really feel. And yeah, it's just like a lightness, it's just and in every moment, like we said, we have a choice, and it just reminds you to choose the thing that's going to make you happy or things going to bring you joy.
Yeah. If you haven't seen the episode on death, you should definitely listen to it. We went deep on
Mm.
death. That's what I wanted to say ages ago when I said the thought went away. So like this whole idea of like choosing and stuff like that, right? I think, a question that I asked people a lot was like, if you could choose, would you choose happiness or frustration? And people are like, oh, happiness, of course.
Mm.
And the other thing I would say to people is like, who's in charge of your happiness? And they'll be like, I am. Cool. Who's in charge of your sadness? And they'll be like, I am. Cool. And so like these are really simple but profound questions because ultimately, like if you're in charge of all these things, then you should never blame anyone else for them. Number one. And ultimately, if you are able to choose with your awareness, then you should never blame anybody else for what's going on in your life either,
Mm.
right? Because again, you have a choice. Whether you chose subconsciously or consciously, you're choosing, man. And so the more that you blame others for anything, you're just avoiding the beautiful lesson for yourself. And so you're just keeping yourself stuck in the same program, in the same spot. And so if you truly desire change and you witness yourself or observe yourself blaming anyone for anything, bring awareness to that and flip the script quick. And I can guarantee you that will dramatically accelerate your ability to change and feel differently in any moment.
Yeah, man.
Yeah. What's next, dude? Go for it.
The spiritual path is not about acquiring, it's about releasing. You're not trying to become something. You're removing the layers of fear, conditioning, and resistance that are covering up what you already are. Hence the title, The Untethered Soul. Simply stop tethering to it. Yeah, I think we spoke about something, yeah, very similar about, I think it was authenticity. And I think that's, you said almost exactly that, or, basically it's not about acquiring, it's about removing. So you can truly be authentic.
Yeah.
Yeah, that feels relevant for me in the moment.
100%, dude. Yeah. I mean, dude, I feel like, and I get it because, at certain moments in my life, I'd witnessed myself saying the same things, but, I feel like people turn this spiritual like path into like a contest in a way, like, oh, I have to achieve this and I have to do this, and they make meditation a fucking competition, and they make yoga a competition, and they make how many books they've read a competition, all these things, like, oh, like I'm climbing this ladder. And I'm like, bro, you're not climbing any ladder. You're not going anywhere, dude. You know? Um, and so yeah, definitely bring awareness to that, man. Like if you feel like you're looking to like make yourself better, I would just ask you to bring awareness to that and question that. Like, what do you mean make yourself better? Are you not complete? Are you not worthy? Are you not whole the way you are? Right? It's one thing to say, hey, like, I would like to better my skills with a soccer ball or something like that. Or, hey, man, I would like to better my skills as a chef. And good skills are one thing, right? But when you're talking about yourself, you don't need to be any better. You're the best. You're exactly where you're supposed to be, and whole and beautiful and loved and all of that, right? And if you don't feel that, it's not because you have to acquire something in order to feel that. What you have to do is give yourself the space to bring awareness to what's in the way of you feeling that. What is in the way? Right? What belief is in the way? What story is in the way? What wound is in the way? Um, yeah,
Yeah, I think, and I could be wrong, but I think when a lot of people say they want to be better, I think what they mean is they want to be more aligned. So they want to, their actions aren't necessarily aligning with their beliefs. Um, that's just a random thought I had. So
it's a beautiful thought that you had. It can be very confusing, right? It can be very confusing to want to approach. I'll give you an example. It can be very confusing to want to approach your loved one in a very loving, calm, and effective way, but continue to find yourself arguing with them. It can be very, very confusing, it can be very hard. Because then you're like, what's wrong with me? Why can't I do that? Like, I want to do that. I know I want to do that, but why do I continue to argue? Why do I continue to get angry? So that's really confusing. And so in those moments, it's like, I want to be better. It's exactly what you're saying, right? It's like, I get that. I understand that. What I would, so what we're saying and what Singer is saying is that in order for you to be better in that context, the way you're using it, you don't have to acquire anything. You're not missing anything. What's happening is in that moment, you are tethering to something. Another word for tethering is attaching, identifying, right? In that moment, you are attaching to something, identifying, tethered to something that is making you react and act in that way that you do not desire to. And so the goal isn't what do I need to acquire? The
mhm.
goal is what am I tethering to? What am I attached to in that moment? If I can release that, right, that is the thing that is in the way of you being your most loving and authentic self. Don't need to acquire anything. So thank you for bringing that up because it's very true, right? I felt that. Um, and so, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I like how you tied it back into exactly what he said. So
Oh,
thanks.
yeah. Yeah, thanks, bro. Yeah, thank you. But yeah, so that's what when he's saying tethered, that's pretty much what he's saying. And so the untethered soul is pretty much the unattached soul or the unidentified soul, right? Um, all right, what's next? In the later chapters, Singer gets more explicitly spiritual. He introduces the idea of making an unconditional commitment to happiness, not happiness dependent on circumstances, but a decision that no matter what happens, you will not let anything steal your inner peace. He frames the highest spiritual practice as essentially falling in love with existence itself, including the parts you don't like. Bro, I'm going to say that again. Let me read that whole thing again. All right. In the later chapters, Singer gets more explicitly spiritual. He introduces the idea of making an unconditional commitment to happiness, not happiness dependent on circumstances, not happiness dependent on circumstances, but a decision that no matter what happens, you will not let anything steal your inner peace. He frames the highest spiritual practice as essentially falling in love with existence itself, including the parts you don't like. I get pumped when I read shit like this because, yes, dude, yes, all of it, man, right? And so, happiness dependent on circumstances is, I feel like, one of the biggest epidemics in the world today. Bro, it's like this idea that, like, oh, I'm happy because I had a great day. And then tomorrow, I'm not happy because I had a shitty day. That's just you saying, like, oh, based off circumstance, I'm going to let circumstance dictate how I feel. It's going against what I just said before, right? Which is like you're in charge of your happiness, you're in charge of your sadness. If I ask anyone that question, I would hope that the answer would be yes, that, I mean, you're in charge of it because you are, right? And so if you're in charge of it, then circumstance is not in charge of it. And if you're allowing circumstance to be in charge of it, then man, life is never going to make sense ever, right? And you're just going to be like a yo-yo, bro, going up and down based off circumstance. Okay. The other thing that he said that gets me pumped is when he said, like, you would not let anything steal your inner peace. Don't give circumstance, don't give people the power, man. It's your power. Don't give it away. Don't let anyone steal that shit from you. It's yours, right? And then the last thing he says, falling in love with existence itself, including the parts you don't like. I feel that along the path of truly loving yourself, you have to be able to love everything, all parts of you, every single part of you. The one that's a dick, the one that judges, the one that gets annoyed, all of it, dude. Love it all, man. Right? Because if you can't love it all, like you said before, Dan, if you can't love it within you, you're just going to not love it in everybody else. You can't love everyone else if you can't love yourself. You're just going to judge others. You're going to project onto others. And ultimately, it's just because you haven't loved that part of yourself.
Mm.
Right. And the fucking kicker is that if you truly desire for that part of yourself to no longer feel like it has to express itself in that way, all it's waiting for is your love. That's all it's waiting for, man. That little kid inside of me that continues to not feel heard, what allows him to calm down and feel like he's getting a big hug is when I give him the attention and let him know that I love him, dude, and it's okay. It's all good, bro. It's all good. Compared to like when I get angry at him and tell him to shut the fuck up, right? And so all those parts of you are just waiting for you to love them. And your ability to find peace within this world is just waiting for you to love it all and realize that it's all a part of this. It's not going anywhere. And so you're either going to be okay with it or you're not. Resist or not. Yeah.
Yeah, I love it, man. An unconditional commitment to happiness is like it's a beautiful little phrase, you know.
Right? It's sick,
Um,
dude. Yeah. Yeah. It makes me think of you, bro. Like, because you're just, I mean, out of all people in my life, I feel like you're very, I tell you this all the time. So I'm probably creating, like, helping you create this epic identity. But anyway, I tell you this all the time, bro. Like, you are a very capable fucking human being. And when you put your mind to something, I feel like it's getting done, son. And so, like, anyone can do this though, right? Like imagine you made that commitment, right? Like I'm going to commit to being in charge of my happiness. I'm going to be in charge of my happiness. Not you, not circumstance, not anything else.
Mhm.
I think it's a beautiful commitment, man. You know, taking control, like taking, not control, taking ownership, I think is one of the most important things we can do.
Huge.
Yeah. 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 So,
All right.
um, I think the last point is just kind of like wrapping up the book, but it's just like Singer's writing is unusually clear and accessible for a spiritual book. He doesn't hide behind jargon. The ideas are ancient, but the delivery feels very accessible. It's a kind of book people say they reread every year. And I can definitely attest to that. It's kind of how I started this podcast, right? Like, if you feel like you've been reading a bunch of spiritual books and they're just like way too dense, or if you feel like you want to start reading books that allow you to learn more about yourself, I would start with this one, man, honestly. And again, if you're the person that's just reading dense spiritual books, pick this one up, dude, because it's super profound, amazingly beautiful, and it's going to hit hard. So, yeah,
Yeah, I'm excited to check it out. I mean,
yeah.
I feel like, yeah, we've talked about a lot of these concepts, but it's nice to have them all, in one place.
Yeah, and he's written a couple of books. He also he also wrote a book about the untethered soul, pretty much like living untethered, kind of like Eckhart Tolle did with the power of now, like living the power of now or something like that. So don't get those books mixed up. The Untethered Soul by Michael Singer. Read the book. Let me know. Write me in the comments. Let me know how it goes. But thank you, Dan, again for showing up and just making this epic space with me. And yeah, see you guys soon.
Thank you, brother.
Sweet.